In late 2017, WestJet and Pacific Coastal Airlines officially announced WestJet Link, a capacity purchase agreement that would connect smaller cities in Alberta and B.C. to the rest of WestJet's network in Calgary. 3 Pacific Coastal Saab 340s were painted in WestJet colors, and operations began in June 2018. Initially, these 34-seat planes flew between Calgary and Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, Lloydminster, Cranbrook, and Prince George. The WestJet painted fleet later grew to 5 Saab 340s, including one that was painted in WestJet's new livery in early 2023. The Link operation also grew to add a couple destinations out of Vancouver as well. In May this year, though, it was announced that the capacity purchase agreement would not be renewed, and that the remaining Link services would be transferred to WestJet Encore and flying on their Dash 8-400s instead. Those planes, however, have twice the capacity of the Saabs, so there are some major frequency cuts in a few of those places. That's something I'll touch on later in this video. Nevertheless, WestJet Link was another interesting chapter to follow, especially for regional aviation in this part of Canada. In some cases, WestJet Link became the only airline service in places like Lethbridge and Medicine Hat after Air Canada stopped flying the Beech 1900s and smaller Dash 8s. WestJet Link will officially wind down on October 27th out of Vancouver. For Calgary, though, that date got moved up to the end of September. Given this, it seemed only fitting to try and get on the last Saab 340 turn out of Calgary, which happened to be the evening one to Medicine Hat. I've flown on the Saabs a few times already, but they're always a fun ride, and I am going to miss seeing them around, so I wanted to give them a proper send-off. Except for a brief period during COVID, WestJet Link flights operated out of Concourse A, and usually parked at the closest ground loading gates. As expected, waiting at Gate 1B was the Saab 340B taking me to Medicine Hat and back, registered as Charlie Golf Papa Charlie India. This 27-year-old Saab flew with Minnesota-based Mesaba Airlines for most of its history, operating for Northwest Airlink from 1996 onwards, then Delta Connection from 2008, US Airways Express in 2011, before eventually joining PAL Airlines of Atlantic Canada in 2012. It stayed with them until 2015 and was then picked up by Pacific Coastal in February 2018 and painted in WestJet Link colors. Fittingly, it was right around then that one of the other Saab 340s based here came in after operating one of the last inbound flights from Cranbrook. It was pretty common to see at least 1 or 2 Pacific Coastal painted Saabs out here in addition to the WestJet painted ones, usually as spare planes. Even with the end of the WestJet Link contract, Pacific Coastal has a pretty extensive network of their own out of Vancouver, so the Saabs won't be going anywhere with them just yet. Gates 1 to 4, and later 5 and 6 here at YYC, were originally built for Encore when they were getting started back in 2013, repurposing an old gate and using the eastern edge of this part of the apron. That was also around the same time that YYC was building the new international terminal, so it's pretty clear that this portion, which I like to call Costco, was built as inexpensively as possible. I'm pretty sure the floor here used to be the actual apron, with the terminal just built right on top of it. Regardless, Gate 1 is at least not too much of a walk compared to some of the others. It was also possible to get a closer view of our Saab as the sun went down. I was kind of hoping to get the one in the new livery, but at least it is one of those actually in WestJet paint. Eventually, the crew was ready for boarding, and off I went to start this final Saab joyride. Pacific Coastal has 34 seats on the Saab 340 in a 2-1 configuration, with the exception of the very last row, which has 4 seats across. For the fun of it, I grabbed seat 12A in that very row. That seat in the middle obviously has some infinite legroom, but it's a little more squishy behind another seat. There's a decent view behind the wing too. The overhead bin space is also somewhat limited, with the bins only being on the 2-seat side. This wasn't a full flight though, and I was traveling with basically just cameras, so that wasn't an issue. One other thing here is, behind the last row is the baggage compartment, and so as bags get loaded, you do hear everything. Eventually, the boarding ramp was pulled away, and the number 1 engine was started up. Here's the departure from Calgary, off of runway 35 right. This evening's flight to Medicine Hat would take just under an hour, mostly following the Trans-Canada Highway. That same journey by car would normally take about 3 hours. Obviously, with the sun having gone down already, there wasn't a ton you could see, although you could clearly make out the lights of Strathmore. In the Saab 340, these seats have the usual tray table and a decently sized seatback pocket. In there was an air sickness bag and the safety card for the Saab 340. At one point, some of these Saabs had actual WestJet branded safety cards. I do wonder where all of those went. Also at each seat is an air vent and a reading light, which in the darkness feels a bit like staring at the sun. These flights are also just long enough for a quick water service using these WestJet branded cups, as well as a snack with a choice of a cookie or pretzels. Other than that though, I happily stretched out for the last little bit of the flight. With all the lights off though, sitting in the back middle seat looking forward is an interesting perspective. The cabin being mostly dark, coupled with the hum of those 2 turboprop engines, almost put me to sleep for the rest of the flight. That was fortunately interrupted once the seatbelt sign came on as we approached Medicine Hat, and here's the arrival onto runway 03. Now this part was a little bit rushed since I had to get off the plane and go straight back through security. Fortunately, past Alex was in Medicine Hat last year and got some footage of the terminal in actual daylight. It is quite a nice regional airport, with a decent sized check-in and a nice modern look to it. I especially like the high ceilings in this central hallway where you can find the entrance to security. Behind security, there's a decent number of seats here, but if I had to guess, it's about enough for just a Saab's worth of people. It was interesting to see this sign here highlighting the changes in the flight schedule, as well as the upgrade to the Dash 8. However, this does bring the frequency down from what was 3 flights a day to just 1. Also in the waiting area, there are bathrooms, as well as not 1, not 2, but 3 whole vending machines. The seating is pretty nice, with power ports too, however they do immediately lose points by putting this on the windows. Just minutes after I went back through security, boarding began for this final Saab flight to Calgary. This time, I grabbed a seat in the exit row in row 7, which has a touch more space and is right over the wing. The other nice thing here is that there's no weirdly low Saab armrest on the window side because of the exit. Pretty quickly, everyone made their way on board, and we were welcomed with a fitting message from our captain.
Good evening, folks. From the flight deck, this is your captain speaking. My name is Spencer, flying with McLean tonight and your flight attendant Justine. Welcome on board WestJet Flight 3017 off to Calgary. Should be about 1 hour and 3 minutes flight time on the flight plan tonight at a cruising altitude of 16,000 feet. As some of you may know, this is a bit of a sad one for us, our last flight as WestJet Link. We are Pacific Coastal Airlines, and unfortunately the contract was not renewed, so last flight as a Saab, flying from Medicine Hat to Calgary, last Calgary-based flight here. We do appreciate having you on board, and we appreciate the service we've been able to give over the last few years, and we hope you guys all enjoy the flight. Thank you.
For the very last time, here's the departure of a WestJet Link Saab 340 for Medicine Hat, off of runway 21. His flight back home was also pretty uneventful, and about 10 minutes longer thanks to a slight headwind. In between the occasional bump, there was another service with water and cookies or pretzels. Aside from that, there was plenty of time to think about what replacing the Saabs with Dash 8s really means for some of these regional airports. Of those 5 original WestJet Link destinations, service to Lloydminster ended in April this year, and Prince George's flights to Calgary were later upgraded to a Dash 8 and are now on the 737. For Cranbrook, because of where it is geographically, there will always be a time advantage in flying to either Calgary or Vancouver. For Medicine Hat and Lethbridge though, both of which are a 3-hour drive from Calgary, both airports will go from the 3 daily Saabs to 1 Dash 8. The immediate concern there is that both airports are now just 1 flight away from losing scheduled service outright. Having said that, and while this wasn't stated publicly, it is possible that the age of the Saabs didn't help. If you go back and look at the flight history for both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat over the past few months, more than a few of these were cancelled. Last week in Lethbridge, WestJet's Director of Alliances and Airport Affairs said that they've heard concerns from the community about the reliability of their service and the inconsistency in having to see frequent cancellations, also saying that the reliability is the predominant reason why we're transitioning to Encore. He also mentioned that once we start to rebuild the trust in the community and start to see demand increasing, we'll be wanting to add additional frequencies back in the market, similar to what we had. Given all this, the Saabs may not necessarily be missed from the passenger perspective, but they were nice to see around here. I will always find it funny that a Saab was the first thing to get repainted in the new WestJet livery before anything else. I did stick around after this flight to talk with our awesome crew today, and of course I do feel for everyone involved in the WestJet Link operation at Pacific Coastal. From the sounds of it though, it seems most were offered positions at Encore. So, WestJet Link may have been another one of those unique, yet brief chapters in Canadian aviation history, but it did prove that there is still a need for regional flights around here. For the sake of regional air connectivity in this part of the country, I sincerely hope the Dash 8s continue to serve these communities, ideally with more than 1 flight a day for a long time to come. So long, WestJet Link, and thanks for watching.